Over 100 years ago, a national movement took place that became known as the Celtic Revival. It turned to Ireland's past to create a future sense of Irish identity, embracing many areas of Irish life: literature, painting, sports, and the Irish language. At the heart of the revival were some remarkable individuals. This is the story of one of them. Douglas Hyde was not only the first president of Ireland, he was also the first president of Conradh the Gaeilge, or the Gaelic League. Hyde may seem an unlikely figure to have played such a prominent role in the revival, since he came from a Protestant and Unionist background.
People of the Free State greet the man who has been chosen by Fianna Fáil as the future president. Dr. Hyde will be above party and above politics. We wish him success in his term of office. Though a Protestant becomes the leader of a mainly Roman Catholic country, an example of tolerance which is a model to many another nation.
Bhí mé gcónaí an tuairim nar cheart an Gaeilge bheith faoi chomín ag éon religiún ná políocht bhealach ar bith. Bhí an tá galam gur tógach mé san teachseo lán le leabhar. Ina measc, leabhar do chud an chraomhín even, a bhí ar an tuairim céine breis agus 100 bliain ó hen. There was a time when Irish was considered as the badge of ignorance and backwardness.
The Irish language, of course, had been the language of the majority of the Irish people right up until the famine. And then the famine, this great catastrophe, begins this process, really, whereby, first of all, the speakers of Irish a lot of them have died. And over decades, millions of people are leaving, and they are overwhelmingly Irish speakers. So the language has been hammered, and there's a widespread sense that this is a language which is going to become extinct.
Douglas Hyde was born in County Roscommon in 1860, the son of a Church of Ireland clergyman. His family weren't wealthy or part of the landed gentry, but they were the poor relations of the Frenches of French Park.
This is Longford House in Castlerea, and that's the house he was born in 1860. Yes. And when he was 7, he lived in Kilmactrani for the first 7 years of his life. And then when he was 7, the father was made rector of this church here we're in now, the Bohan Church. But during those years, he used to mix with the local people in the cottages, and they were the ones that gave him the love of the Irish language.
Hyde was a sickly child and was homeschooled by his father, who taught him ancient Greek and Latin, and he soon became fluent in both languages. But it was a local gamekeeper and former Fenian, Seamus Hart, who sparked a love of the Irish language in the young Hyde.
Well, bhí Seamus Hart a gobar sa cheantar gon de Roscommon an áit a Rauchóní ar Douglas de Hyde, agus bhíidir an Ireland a chéile chaisiad reinintá ama le chéile. Agus is dócha gur Ryan Hart na scéalta na Hairáin na seanachcolún geantar le Douglas de Hyde, agus dalam sé anna chuid ó Hart. Bhúscail Hart an grá a bhíag de Hyde don tanga agus don chultúr Gaeilge.
I discovered Hyde kept detailed diaries from an early age. They recorded his first steps in learning Irish and also his adventures growing up in rural Roscommon. Maureen Void has studied Hyde's diaries in detail.
Ní raibh Douglas de Hyde ach ceithre bliana ag díos nar thosaigh sé ag scríobh chéad díal an haithan cuasaí taistil go mór leis agus tá actrí agsúla lúta aige tá fíor granar ar bháin thuí sé go ceischuran agus bhí heasta gwaith Gaeilge leirt le muintir na háta. So lig sé ar gur chatlachach é agus nach raibh éon bhéirle aige agus thuí sé steach sa tachtarna leir sé le muintir na háta dul sé cúpla duch agus bhí sé spínta ar chuich sé an baile ach haithan an lá go mór leis. So bhí sé an spéisiúil na hachtarí sin a eáil sa díalan.
Hyde was fascinated hearing the people in the locality speaking Irish. The stories and folk tales he heard fired his imagination and sparked something else in him.
You have this huge movement towards nationalism in the 19th century, and they don't really think about nationality just in territorial terms. They think about language groups. So the Germans are the people who speak German. The Italians are the people who speak Italian. So therefore, the Irish must be the people who speak Irish. But hold on, we're not speaking Irish, we're speaking English. Therefore, do we exist at all as a nation? There's a very strong existential sense in the late 19th century that if your language goes, you have no claim to be a separate nation.
When Hyde was 16, his mentor and friend died. He was heartbroken.
Hyde wrote in his diary, "I can see no one from now on with whom I can enjoy friendship such as I enjoyed with you."
Thresh, the heart boss all near Vasque de Hida le muinter na hata fa Misa, vi sé chotrin a chéile sin gur an sé leis hain agus nach raibh sé géirí tagháil a dhéanamh le muinter na dúthe.
Hyde studied classics at Trinity College and went on to gain a PhD in law. He maintained his interest and fluency in Irish by studying the language in his own time. In 1880, he joined the Society for the Preservation of the Irish Language and began to publish his own poems, as Gaeilge, as well as translations of songs and ballads. He used the pen name An Creevin Even, delightful little branch, by which he became well known.
Hyde's argument really is that Irishness consists primarily in the language. That you can't have Irishness if you don't have the language. So the revival of Irish isn't just a sort of abstract linguistic project. It's actually a project about saying whether or not there is such a thing as an Irish people.
In 1892, Douglas Hyde became the first president of the Irish National Literary Society and delivered a speech called The Necessity for De-Anglicising Ireland. His speech was to have a far-reaching and profound effect on Irish cultural history.
It's keen to grade a Hyde ag fragart rudí a bhí ag titim amach sa tír ag an am. Agus an teachtarach bavó an gain sin ná gur chóirú na keen tú gombeich dera le mea na Gaeilge.
Hyde's speech is really an alarm call. It's actually not about saying, look, we've got this lovely language, why don't we revive it? Why don't we speak it? It's actually saying we're right on the edge of the abyss culturally. The language is going, and if the language goes, then the entire culture goes. Everything that's wrapped up in the language, all its memories, all its meanings will be gone.
1893 proved to be a critical year for Hyde. He married Lucy Kurtz, and they later went on to have two daughters, Nuala and Una. He also published Love Songs of Conradh, his most famous book. It was based on ballads he had heard as he travelled through Connemara.
Hussí Douglas de Hida ag balún an air an seo nar bhí sé an a bhuacalóg agus an sin sa bhí an 1893 dá sig sé a bhar am leabhariad. Bhí an tuncar ag na hair an seo bhaintear na tíre ag an am agus is dócha go raibh siad sort go raibh an bailúchán seo raibh lódach mar bailúchán de bhór ábhar agus tanga agus freisin tuisc Grain na hair an seo ag déanam cursius bhuthúchán acu perspectíocht na manda. Is cínta chur an bailúchán seo go mór leis an dearcha bhí ag daoine ar Douglas de Hida mar scríbhneoir agus feictear sin na tagartí ó Yeats, Lady Gregory agus sing Marial de Hida.
(1893) was also the year that the Gaelic League, or Conradh na Gaeilge, was founded, with Hyde as its first president. Its purpose was not just to preserve, but to revive the Irish language.
Rinne Conradh na Gaeilge anna chuid son na teanga. Bhí craobhacha fud na tír agus chuir siad rangan na Gaeilge fáildas na gnághine. Chomála sin chuir siad rangan na dausa, rangan na ceol fáil. Agus is tócha gur lag Conradh na Gaeilge béim hábhach san chultúr Gaeilge agus gur sprág Conradh na Gaeilge muintear na tír seo I dro na teanga.
What really impresses me is that from the outset, Hyde was adamant that the new organisation would have no explicit political objective.
Hyde very much sees the Irish language and its revival as a way of creating a new Irish identity which transcends the sectarian division. And the hope for Hyde is that this isn't just about reviving something in the past, it's also through that revival about creating a better Ireland of the future.
Conradh na Gaeilge expanded, forming branches nationwide, including unionist parts of Ulster.
I was shocked to discover that the Belfast branch of Conradh na Gaeilge was set up in the Beersbridge Road here in East Belfast in 1895. So, you know, a stone's throw away from where I live was the birth of the Belfast branch. I never knew.
Linda Irvine comes from a staunchly loyalist background. She's related to David Irvine, a former leader of the UVF. Despite her background, she found inspiration in Hyde's life and work, and like him, has come to love the Irish language. She now runs weekly Irish language classes.
He's been part of my tours of discovery, and you know, when I found out about Douglas Hyde and that he was a Protestant, and you know, one of the quotes from Douglas Hyde, I just love where he said, you know, thank God the Irish language is neither Protestant nor Catholic, neither a unionist nor a separatist. You know, that really resonates within me, because that is what the language is. It doesn't belong to one community. It doesn't stand for one political viewpoint. It belongs to us all. And for me, the language has the potential to unite us, not divide us.
The Irish Republican Brotherhood, that would go on to become the Irish Republican Army, held the opposite view. They saw the language as a way to separate Ireland from Britain. Part of its strategy was to infiltrate and control a number of key nationalist cultural organisations.
If you were the IRB, any movement which was tending towards the separation of Ireland from Britain was exactly where you wanted to be. Whatever that was doing, whether it was land agitation, whether it was the GAA, or whether it was the Irish language movement, so long as it had separatist implications, then it was very useful to you.
Patrick Pearse became one of Hyde's IRB opponents in the League. In 1913, Pearse wrote, "Had I a chance of speaking after Hyde had produced his Dove of Peace, I have always been careful to produce my sword, and to tantalise him by saying that the Gaelic League has brought to Ireland not peace, but a sword."
So the IRB gradually began to infiltrate the Gaelic League, and eventually then to push for the Gaelic League to adopt an explicitly separatist agenda.
Bhunaí dúglas de Hyde a Conradh na Gaeilge agriochs nach rá bant eci le políocht ach an sin sa bhliain 1915 bhog Conradh na Gaeilge dro na políochta ní raibh de Hyde sásta le sin an aon chur.
The conflict within the League reached a climax early in 1915 when IRB members drafted an amendment to Rule 2 of the League's constitution, inserting an unambiguous commitment to political separation from Britain. Hyde was passionate in his opposition to any amendment.
Never, never, for as long as the Gaelic League holds together, and I find myself on a platform like this, shall the pure light of the Irish language be trailed in the dust of any one faction or party, or of politics at all. He went on to lose the vote, and at once resigned from the League.
Hyde's tragedy really was that he was never going to be as good a political operator on the day-to-day level of doing conspiratorial politics and getting people elected and running committees and getting control of organisations as the IRB were. They were pretty experienced at this kind of stuff, and in the end, they saw him off.
Most of the signatories of the Easter Proclamation had been members of the Gaelic League. But Hyde took no part in the rising. In fact, he strongly opposed it.
Hyde, like a lot of cultural nationalists, was pretty shocked by the Easter Rising. I mean, the Easter Rising was, you have to remember how much of a minority movement it was. Most militant Irish nationalists did not think the Easter Rising was a good idea. They thought the principles of it were good, but they saw it as an act of complete folly at that particular time. Hyde was completely outside the loop. He had no idea that this was coming and was deeply shocked, completely discombobulated by it.
Douglas Hyde kept a diary during the Easter Rising, and he describes the day when he is walking by and the tram is going from Stephen's Green to Clonskee, and the volunteers come and start shooting at the tram, and all the people run off it screaming and are very nervous and agitated. He also talks about the dead bodies. One day he counted 17 dead bodies, and about the dead horses as well. So it's fascinating to read, and you can really visualise what was happening at the time through the eyes of Douglas Hyde.
He was dismayed that some of the League's members, such as Pearse, had taken part. Even after the executions, his view remained unchanged. He thought their involvement had compromised Conradh Gaeilge's work and wrote, "The League has been steered onto the rocks by fools." As far as he was concerned, the end result was as black as can be. After the establishment of the Free State, Hyde was appointed as a senator, but he lost his seat in the next election. It seemed that he would end his days in academia, surrounded by his books and friends, as a professor of Irish at UCD. However, there was a different fate in store for him. In 1938, Ireland had just adopted a brand new constitution. Hyde was almost 80, but he was asked to come out of retirement and serve as the country's first president.
The greatest day in the history of the Irish Free State, the celebration of another victory for Mr. de Valera. Today, his nominee, Dr. Douglas Hyde, is being installed as first president. Dr. Hyde has been accepted by all parties to be in every sense a representative of the nation.
It's not surprising that Hyde was chosen as the first president of Ireland after the 1937 constitution. He had never become embroiled in sort of bitter Irish controversy. He had tried to remain a very gentlemanly, open kind of figure who was genuinely admired and liked, and that was important. It was also important for the presidency that Hyde was Protestant. The state was still very anxious to present itself, even if the reality was somewhat different, as a non-sectarian state. As president, he wanted to be seen as someone who represented both traditions on the island of Ireland.
Shortly after his inauguration in 1938, he attended a soccer match between Ireland and Poland at Dalymount Park. Despite being a patron of the GAA for 36 years, Hyde was expelled from the organisation for contravening Rule 27 of the GAA, which forbade attendance at any so-called foreign game.
Hyde's expulsion from the GAA in many ways kind of dramatised the fact that even though he was being acknowledged as president, as a key founder of the state, his vision of Ireland was still not one that Ireland officially was quite comfortable with. It was still very much a Catholic sectarian state, which saw Irish cultural nationalism as a part of its armoury, rather than as a ground on which a much more complex, open, pluralistic kind of Ireland could be brought into being.
Soon after he became president, Douglas Hyde suffered a stroke. It was typical of the man that he still tried to fulfill his duties.
Irish ambulances presented to the Irish Red Cross Society by the President of Ireland himself. Owing to his weak state of health, the presentations of the keys of his ambulances are made by his adjutant, while the President returns the salute of the driver.
Despite his illness, Hyde remained committed to carry out his role for the remainder of his term as Uachtaráin na hÉireann.
There was one last controversy in Hyde's life, his death. In 1949, he was buried from St. Patrick's Church of Ireland Cathedral.
However, the Irish cabinet did not attend the service, which was forbidden by the Catholic Church at the time. The sole exception was Noel Brown. The rest of the ministers waited in their state cars outside the Protestant church.
The behaviour of the Irish government, at the funeral of the first president of the state, the fact that they did not see fit to cross the threshold of a Protestant church to honour one of the key figures in the creation of modern Ireland is one of the great disgraces of the state. And what they were saying essentially was that Hyde's vision of Ireland, which was a non-sectarian one, was in fact not one they shared. They were making a statement about the state, which was that it was essentially a Catholic state and that the demands of Catholicism and a very, very narrow sectarian kind of Catholicism outweighed the demands of Irish republicanism, which supposedly was a non-sectarian creed.
In recent decades, Ireland is beginning to catch up with some of Hyde's thinking. Rule 27 of the GAA, which forbade foreign games, was abolished in the early 1970s, and Rule 21, which forbade anyone connected with the Crown Forces taking part in Gaelic games, was scrapped just a few years ago. Conradh na Gaeilge, the Gaelic League, also abolished its explicit political agenda. In 2008, the organisation embraced the non-political status that Hyde had originally championed.
Hyde would be enormously disappointed with contemporary Ireland because he saw that there would be no real distinctive Irish culture without the Irish language. And he turned out to be wrong. It turned out most Irish people were perfectly contented to have an Irish identity, which did not include at least Irish as the vernacular language of the state. And I think Hyde's basic aspiration is still one that is really important, and even more important in the Ireland after the Good Friday Agreement, where we now, at least again, have some sense that we need a pluralist identity.
Well, for me, every word spoken in Gaelic is like a brick in the bridge that unites us as a people. Hitchman Ra, Lesh and Shanga. And it's my language, and I didn't know that. I'd never been allowed to know that. So I think it's important not to push it down anybody's throat, not to force it on anybody, but to share it out and say, it's here if you're interested and you want to come and learn. But even just to know that it's part of your environment, your place names, your own surnames, the words that you're using in your everyday language. What other country in the world would you not be allowed to know that?
Hansa híd a gomórlam mar ghuine, gohortha agus mé ag léamh na nílan, hís a goire ó swords, scríb sé mar Oxford Granvera agus hí féin bhuinín ag buint leis ach níor ghuine sutalach é an éonchar. Bhí sé an das agus cordiúil agus hahan cólúsar gomór leis agus bhrá lumsa bheith mar chara ag do híde.
By any standards, Douglas Hyde was a remarkable man. A linguist, a cultural activist, a poet, a scholar, a dramatist and a teacher. But perhaps his most important legacy was his basic sense of decency and tolerance and the breadth of his vision, from which we can all still learn.